The hum of classic blues drifted through the modest suburban home in Des Moines as Danny Hayes chopped vegetables for dinner. His strong hands moved with practiced precision across the cutting board while B.B. King's guitar riffs filled the kitchen. At 38, Danny had built a life that seemed picture-perfect: a devoted husband, respected history teacher, and collector of vintage vinyl records that lined the walls of their small dining room. "Sweet 16, and you're my teenage queen," Danny sang softly, glancing at the clock. 6:45 p.m. Eleanor should have been home 45 minutes ago. He reached for his phone, thumb hovering over her contact photo, a snapshot from their wedding day 15 years ago. They'd been high school sweethearts, together for 20 years total, the kind of love story people swooned over. He set the phone down without calling. She was probably caught up with work at the social services office. Danny returned to preparing the garlic bread, remembering their weekend plans to visit the state park. Eleanor had seemed distracted when he'd mentioned it that morning, but she'd agreed nonetheless. The front door clicked open at 7:15 p.m. Danny turned to greet Eleanor, noting the slight tremor in her hands as she set her purse down. "Traffic was terrible," she said before he could ask, her voice carrying an unfamiliar edge. "Sorry I'm late." Danny studied his wife's face, the careful composition of her features, the way her eyes wouldn't quite meet his. "No problem. Dinner's ready whenever you are." They sat at their small kitchen table, the same one they'd bought at a garage sale when they first moved in. Eleanor pushed her food around the plate, taking small bites between long silences. "How was work?" Danny asked, watching her tense slightly at the question. "Fine. The usual." She took a sip of water. "We had a difficult case today. Want to talk about it?"
No.
Eleanor's response came too quickly. "I mean, you know, confidentiality and all that." Danny nodded, noting how she kept her phone face down beside her plate, the screen lighting up periodically with notifications she was clearly trying to hide. The silence between them felt heavy, unfamiliar. In 20 years together, they'd never run out of things to say to each other. Later that night, while Eleanor showered, Danny gathered the laundry. As he sorted through the clothes, a tissue fell from her coat pocket. He picked it up, frowning at the bold red lipstick stain. Eleanor never wore red lipstick. She preferred subtle pinks and neutrals, claiming anything bolder made her feel overdressed. The discovery gnawed at him, but he said nothing. Instead, he began paying closer attention. Eleanor's late nights became more frequent. Her explanations grew increasingly vague. She changed her phone's password. Small withdrawals appeared in their joint account. Nothing suspicious on its own, but the pattern bothered him. One evening, while Eleanor worked late again, Danny logged into their online banking. His stomach dropped as he scrolled through the transactions. Over the past 3 months, nearly $15,000 had been withdrawn in small increments. Eleanor had always handled their finances. Danny had trusted her completely. He sat in their darkened living room, surrounded by the vintage records they collected together, feeling like a stranger in his own home. The B.B. King record still spun on the turntable, but Danny no longer heard the music. With trembling fingers, he installed a monitoring app on their shared laptop. Eleanor rarely used it, preferring her phone and work computer, but Danny knew she occasionally checked her personal email on it. He told himself it was wrong, that he should simply confront her, but something deeper, a primal instinct for self-preservation, drove him forward. 3 days later, the app captured her password. Danny waited until Eleanor left for work before opening her email. The first few pages revealed nothing unusual: work correspondence, shopping confirmations, newsletters. Then he found them. Emails to and from someone named Gavin Sterling, dozens of them, spanning months. Danny's hands clenched as he read through the exchanges. They started professionally enough, Gavin introducing himself as a local businessman interested in supporting social services programs. But the tone shifted quickly, becoming flirtatious, then intimate. They discussed their secret meetings, weekend getaways disguised as work trips, their growing feelings for each other. Danny researched Gavin Sterling, owner of a luxury car dealership in town, married, 2 kids, known for his charitable donations and business acumen. Danny dug deeper, finding posts and articles about Sterling's aggressive business tactics, complaints from former employees about his ruthless nature. The texts were worse than the emails. Danny found them backed up in Eleanor's cloud account. Photos, intimate messages, plans for their future together. The money she'd taken, she'd been spending it on hotels, gifts for Gavin, planning their escape. "I've never felt this way about anyone," Eleanor had written. "What I have with Danny, it's comfortable, safe. But with you, I feel alive." Danny sat at their kitchen table, Eleanor's phone in his hand, reading message after message. The blues record had stopped playing hours ago, leaving only the sound of his breathing in the quiet house. His hands shook, not with sadness or fear, but with a rage he'd never experienced before. The kind, gentle history teacher who sang along to blues records began to fade away. In his place, something darker emerged, a man capable of things the old Danny would never have imagined. He set the phone down carefully, his movements controlled despite the fury coursing through him. Eleanor would regret underestimating him. They all would. Chapter 2. The Text and the Threat. Danny hadn't slept in days. Dark circles rimmed his eyes as he meticulously documented every piece of evidence he'd uncovered. Their bedroom felt tainted now. He'd moved to the guest room, telling Eleanor he was fighting a cold and didn't want to infect her. She'd accepted the excuse easily, probably grateful for the space to continue her deception. His laptop screen glowed in the darkness as he researched Iowa divorce laws. The state's no-fault divorce policy meant Eleanor's infidelity might not matter legally, but the financial fraud, that was different. He downloaded bank statements, credit card bills, receipts. Eleanor had been thorough in covering her tracks, but not thorough enough. "How's the cold?" Eleanor asked one morning, her tone carefully neutral. They barely spoke anymore, dancing around each other in their own home like uneasy strangers. "Getting better," Danny replied, watching her check her phone for the 100th time that day. "You're home late again tonight?" "Probably." Big case. She didn't even try to make the lie sound convincing anymore. Danny nodded, returning to his coffee. He'd learned to school his features, to hide the rage that threatened to overwhelm him whenever he looked at her. Eleanor had started picking fights, manufacturing arguments over nothing. The dishes, the laundry, his attitude. She was building a narrative, he realized, laying groundwork to justify her actions when everything came to light. He heard her on the phone with friends, speaking in hushed tones about how distant he'd become, how unsupportive. The same friends they'd shared for years now looked at him differently, believing Eleanor's carefully crafted lies. Danny added each slight, each manipulation to his mental ledger. The debt grew larger by the day. That evening, Danny compiled everything into a single file: bank statements, emails, texts, hotel receipts. He placed it on Eleanor's desk in the home office she rarely used anymore. Then he waited. The text came at 11:47 p.m. "Only my expensive lawyer will speak to you about the divorce." Danny stared at the message, something breaking loose inside him. Eleanor thought she held all the cards. She thought her wealthy lover and high-priced attorney would protect her. She had no idea what she'd awakened in her quiet, kind-hearted husband. He called in sick to work the next day, then drove to a small record shop across town. The owner, an elderly man who'd sold Danny many of his favorite albums, looked concerned when Danny asked to sell his entire collection. "You sure about this, Danny? Some of these are pretty valuable." "I'm sure." Danny's voice was steady. "Life changes. Sometimes we have to let things go." The sale netted him nearly $30,000, more than he'd expected. He'd accumulated other valuable items over the years: first editions, collectible coins, art pieces. By the end of the week, he'd raised close to $50,000. Eleanor noticed the missing records, but said nothing. She probably thought he was having some sort of breakdown. Let her think that. Let her underestimate him one last time. Danny reached out to Marcus Mac Caldwell, an old college friend now working as a private investigator in Chicago. They hadn't spoken in years, but Mac remembered Danny fondly. They'd been close once, before life and distance intervened. "Danny Hayes," Mac's voice was warm through the phone. "Been a long time, brother. What's up?" "I need your help, Mac. Your professional help. Can we meet?" There was a pause. "You in some kind of trouble?" "Not exactly. But someone else is about to be." They arranged to meet in Chicago. Before leaving, Danny did his homework on Eleanor's chosen attorney, Randy Price of Price and Associates, one of Des Moines' most aggressive divorce lawyers. Known for his ruthless tactics and high fees, Danny spent hours researching the firm, its cases, its financials. A pattern emerged. Price and Associates had overextended itself, taking on too many high-risk cases. They'd recently lost several major clients. The firm was hemorrhaging money, though they maintained a facade of success. Danny booked a flight to Chicago, packing light. Eleanor barely looked up from her phone when he told her he needed a few days away to clear his head. "Whatever," she muttered. "Just make sure your attitude improves when you get back." Danny smiled, a cold, unfamiliar expression that would have shocked anyone who knew him. "Oh, it will. Things are definitely going to improve." He left Eleanor to her phone, to her secrets and lies, to her plans that were about to crumble. The kind teacher who'd loved vintage records and quiet evenings at home was gone. In his place stood a man capable of destroying everything and everyone who had betrayed him. The next move would shock them all. Chapter 3. The Takeover and the Lawyer's Shock. Chicago's winter wind bit through Danny's coat as he met Mac in a small diner on the city's north side. His old friend had aged well, still fit, still sharp, but with gray threading through his dark hair. Mac's eyes widened as Danny laid out everything he'd discovered. "Jesus, Danny. I'm sorry, man." Mac shook his head. "What do you need from me?" "Everything you can find on Randy Price and his firm. And Gavin Sterling. I want to know every skeleton, every weakness, every pressure point." Mac studied him carefully. "This isn't just about divorce anymore, is it?" "No." Danny's voice was cold. "This is about justice. This is about making them pay." They spent hours reviewing Mac's findings. Price and Associates was in worse shape than Danny had realized. Randy had been taking risky loans to keep the firm afloat, using client funds as collateral, a clear ethical violation. He'd also been cooking the books, hiding losses from his partners. Gavin Sterling's car dealership was equally vulnerable. Mac had uncovered evidence of fraudulent sales reports, money laundering through shell companies, kickbacks from suppliers. Sterling had built his empire on sand, and Danny now held the shovel that would bring it all down. "I can help you expose them," Mac offered. "Get the evidence to the right authorities." "No." Danny's eyes gleamed with cold purpose. "I have something better in mind." They spent the next day setting up a shell company, using the cash Danny had raised. Mac connected him with financial experts who helped structure the deal. By evening, Danny had secured a high-interest loan using his liquid assets as collateral. "You sure about this?" Mac asked as they finalized the paperwork. "It's risky. Everything worth doing is risky." Danny signed the last document. "But they'll never see it coming." He flew back to Des Moines the next morning, dressed in an expensive suit he'd bought in Chicago. The receptionist at Price and Associates smiled professionally as he approached her desk. "Good morning. John Marshall to see Mr. Price. I believe he's expecting me." She checked her calendar and nodded. Randy Price's office was exactly what Danny expected. All leather and mahogany, designed to intimidate clients. Randy rose from behind his desk, hand extended. "Mr. Marshall, welcome. Please, have a seat." Danny sat, studying the man who'd planned to help Eleanor destroy him. Randy Price was tall, well-dressed, with the practiced smile of a shark. He launched into his standard pitch about the firm's success and future plans. "Actually," Danny interrupted smoothly, "I think we should discuss the firm's current situation." Randy's smile faltered slightly. "I'm not sure what you mean." "The overextended credit lines. The misappropriated client funds. The creative accounting." Danny's voice remained calm. "It's quite a mess you're in, Randy." The color drained from Randy's face. "Who are you really?" "Daniel Hayes." Danny watched recognition dawn in Randy's eyes. "Eleanor Hayes's husband. The man you were planning to destroy in court." Randy's coffee cup slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. His hands began to shake as Danny continued. "You should read the business news more carefully, Randy. That Chicago investment firm that bought your company yesterday? That was me." That's impossible." "Is it?" Danny placed a folder on the desk. "I own Price and Associates now, which means I own you." and you're fired. Randy's professional facade crumbled completely. You can't do this. I have clients' cases. Had clients. Had cases. Danny's voice was ice. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. He stood, straightening his tie. Oh, and Randy? If you're thinking of fighting this, remember, I have copies of all your creative accounting. One phone call to the bar association, and you'll never practice law again. Danny pulled out his phone as Randy slumped in his chair, defeated. He dialed Eleanor's number, watching Randy's face as it rang. Hello? Eleanor's voice was wary. Hi, honey. Just wanted to let you know I'm back in town. And I'm afraid Randy Price won't be able to represent you anymore. In fact, he won't be representing anyone. What are you talking about? Check your email. I just sent you some interesting documents about your boyfriend's business practices. And our joint accounts? They're frozen pending a forensic audit. Have a nice day, dear. Danny ended the call, savoring Eleanor's panic. He turned back to Randy, who still sat shell-shocked behind the desk that was no longer his. I'll need those keys now, Randy. And your bar association ID. Your career in Des Moines is over. Security arrived to escort Randy out. Danny watched from his new office window as the former lawyer stumbled to his car, his reputation and career in tatters. Phase 1 was complete. Now for Sterling and Eleanor. The quiet history teacher was gone. In his place stood a man who would burn everything to the ground to get his revenge. And he was just getting started. Chapter 4. The Unfolding Countermoves. Danny sat behind his new desk at Price & Associates, reviewing the files Mac's team had uncovered. The leather chair still held Randy Price's impression, but the office had been stripped of its previous owner's pretentious decorations. In their place, Danny had installed monitors displaying real-time financial data from Gavin Sterling's car dealership. Sir, his new assistant Sarah knocked on the door. Mr. Caldwell's team sent over the employee interviews from Sterling Luxury Motors. Danny looked up from his laptop. Come in. What did they find? Sarah placed a thick folder on his desk. 3 former sales managers, 2 accountants, and a finance director. All willing to talk. She paused. They really hate him. People often do hate those who abuse their power, Danny replied, opening the folder. Thank you, Sarah. The testimonies painted a clear picture. Gavin Sterling had built his empire on fraud and intimidation. The sales numbers were inflated, the books cooked through a maze of shell companies. Sterling used the dealership to launder money for local criminals, taking a hefty cut for himself. Danny picked up his phone, dialing Mac. You see what I sent? Mac asked without preamble. I did. Your team did excellent work. The former finance director's testimony is particularly damning. Guy kept detailed records, Mac confirmed. Sterling threatened to ruin him if he ever talked. Now he's ready to sing like a canary. Danny smiled. Make sure he talks to the right people. FBI, SEC, state investigators. I want them all circling Sterling's operation by the end of the week. Already on it. What about the wife? Ellie. Danny's voice hardened. Let's see how she handles watching her lover's life implode first. I have other plans for her. He ended the call and buzzed Sarah. Get me the forensic accounting team. It's time to look at those joint accounts. The next few days were a symphony of destruction. Anonymous tips reached regulatory agencies. Evidence appeared in prosecutors' offices. Sterling's business partners received disturbing information about his activities. The vultures began to circle. Danny watched it unfold from his office, directing each move like a conductor leading an orchestra of revenge. He received regular updates on both targets. Sterling's biggest investor pulled out this morning, Sarah reported. His credit lines are being reviewed by 3 banks. And Ellie? Still trying to find a new lawyer. No one will take her case. They all know the firm's new owner. Danny nodded. Have the forensic accountants finished their review? Yes, sir. They documented 57 separate instances of financial misconduct. Mrs. Hayes diverted nearly $40,000 to private accounts and expenses related to Mr. Sterling. Excellent. Send copies to her employer's ethics board. Anonymous source, of course. The pieces were falling into place. Sterling's empire was crumbling. Ellie's carefully constructed lies were unraveling. But Danny wasn't finished, not by far. He drafted a settlement offer that would strip Ellie of almost everything, knowing she would reject it. That wasn't the point. The point was to show her how powerless she had become. "Your wife's here." Sarah's voice crackled through the intercom. "She's demanding to see you." Danny straightened his tie. "Send her in." Ellie stormed into the office, her composed facade cracking. "What are you doing?" "Running my business," Danny replied calmly. "Did you receive the settlement offer?" "This is insane. You can't just take everything. Like you planned to do to me?" He pulled out a file. $40,000, Ellie. That's what you stole for your little romance. Did Sterling promise to take care of you after you left me broke? That's not. The difference between us, Danny continued, his voice ice cold, is that I'm doing this legally, through the system you thought would protect you. How does it feel to be on the other side? Ellie's hands trembled. "I'll fight this. I'll find another lawyer. Good luck." Word's gotten around about what happened to Randy Price. No one wants to end up like him. Danny turned back to his computer. "You can see yourself out." He didn't watch her leave. Instead, he pulled up the latest reports on Sterling's deteriorating empire. The man's investors were fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. His creditors were circling. The carefully constructed facade was crumbling. Danny picked up his phone again. "Mac, time for Phase 2. Release the evidence about the money laundering. Let's see how Sterling handles real pressure." The wheel of vengeance continued to turn, crushing everything in its path. Chapter 5. The Cracks in the Facade. Gavin Sterling paced his office at the dealership, phone pressed to his ear. "What do you mean you're pulling the credit line? We've done business for 10 years. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling." The banker's voice was firm. "Given the current allegations and pending investigations, we have no choice." "Allegations? They're lies. Who's been spreading these rumors?" "The FBI doesn't investigate rumors, Mr. Sterling." "Good day." The line went dead. Gavin hurled the phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. His empire was imploding, and he couldn't stop it. A knock at his door. "What?" His assistant peeked in. "Mr. Sterling? Mrs. Hayes is here to see you." Gavin ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Send her in." Ellie rushed into the office, her eyes wild. "Gavin, what's happening? I can't access any of our accounts. The joint ones with Danny are frozen, and the private ones we set up. They're empty." "Not now, Ellie. I have bigger problems." "Bigger problems?" "They're investigating me at work. Someone sent them documentation of all the money I moved. I could lose my license." Gavin's eyes narrowed. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. I would never." "Are you working with him? Is that what this is?" "What?" "No. Gavin, Danny's destroying us both. We need to fight back." "Us?" Gavin laughed bitterly. "There is no us. There's me trying to save my business, and you're just another liability." Ellie stepped back as if slapped. "You promised we'd be together. You said you'd take care of me. That was before your husband turned out to be a fucking genius at revenge." "Jesus, Ellie, what did you do to him?" I just wanted to be happy." "Well, congratulations. Now we're both miserable." Gavin's phone buzzed, another crisis demanding attention. "Get out. We're done." "Gavin, please. Get out." Ellie fled the office in tears. Gavin turned to his computer, where more bad news awaited. His investors were demanding emergency meetings. His suppliers were requesting payment in advance. The walls were closing in. Meanwhile, at Price & Associates, Danny faced challenges of his own. The senior partners had called a meeting to discuss the firm's new direction. Mr. Hayes, Thomas Wilson, the oldest partner, addressed him. "While we appreciate the efficiency of your takeover, some of us have concerns about your methods." Danny studied the room full of expensive suits and worried faces. "Concerns about ethics, Mr. Wilson? That's rich, coming from a firm that helped Randy Price cover up judicial bribes." The partners shifted uncomfortably. Danny pressed his advantage. "Let me be clear. This firm will be cleaned up. The corrupt judges, the illegal practices, all of it ends now. Those of you who want to practice law ethically can stay. The rest should tender their resignations." "Are you threatening us?" another partner demanded. "Not at all. I'm offering you a choice. Reform or leave." But understand this, I have evidence of everything. Everyone sins. Choose carefully. The meeting ended quickly after that. Danny returned to his office, where Sarah waited with updates. Sterling's biggest supplier canceled their contract, she reported. His inventory is down to nearly nothing. And the FBI interviewed 3 more former employees today. Excellent. What about the judges? 2 have announced early retirement. The 3rd is fighting the investigation. Danny nodded. He'll learn. They all will. He pulled up his email. Any word from Ellie? She was seen leaving Sterling's office in tears an hour ago. Apparently, he broke off their relationship rather dramatically. Perfect. Danny allowed himself a small smile. Send flowers to Mr. Sterling. A sympathy arrangement. Card should read, tough times ahead. Best wishes, Danny Hayes. That's cold, sir. No, Sarah. Cold is destroying someone's marriage for fun. Cold is stealing their money and ruining their reputation. This is justice. The next week brought more developments. Sterling's dealership lost its manufacturer certifications. 2 banks called in their loans. The FBI executed search warrants at his office and home. Danny watched it all unfold, directing new blows from the shadows. His informants kept him updated on both targets' deteriorating mental states. Sterling had become paranoid, trusting no one. He jumped at shadows, expecting federal agents around each corner. His confident swagger had been replaced by nervous twitches and explosive anger. Ellie wasn't faring much better. Abandoned by her lover, under investigation at work, shunned by former friends, her world had contracted to a tiny, miserable space. She called Danny daily, leaving increasingly desperate messages. Please, her latest voicemail begged. Can we just talk? I'll explain everything. I'll make it right. Danny deleted the message without responding. There would be no explanations, no reconciliation, only consequences. The hammer continued to fall, guided by Danny's steady hand. The hunter had become the prey, and the prey had become something far more dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Chapter 6. The Sting of Justice. Danny reviewed the legal documents spread across his desk, each page another nail in Sterling's coffin. The lean paperwork was perfect. His team had found a series of improperly recorded loans against Sterling's assets. Now those assets belonged to Danny's shell companies. The marshals delivered the notices this morning, Sarah reported. They seized 6 vehicles from Sterling's personal collection, including the Bentley he bought last month. How did he take it? Not well. Security had to remove him from the showroom. He was screaming about lawsuits. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from Mac. FBI moving in. Turn on the news. He flicked on the office television. There it was. FBI agents leading Gavin Sterling out of his dealership in handcuffs. The crawl beneath the footage detailed the charges. Money laundering, fraud, tax evasion. His office door burst open. Ellie stood there, tears streaming down her face. Happy now? She demanded. You've destroyed him. No, Ellie. He destroyed himself. I just made sure he faced the consequences. Danny didn't bother standing. Like you will. I made a mistake. I was unhappy, confused. Can't you understand that? I understand betrayal. I understand theft. I understand how you systematically tried to destroy me. He opened a folder. Speaking of which, your employer called. They'd like to discuss some financial irregularities they've discovered. Ellie sank into a chair. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want nothing from you except your complete and total ruination. Consider it payment for 20 years of lies. You can't mean that. The Danny I knew. The Danny you knew died the night he found your messages to Sterling. Remember what you wrote? How I was safe and comfortable. Well, I'm not safe anymore. And you're certainly not comfortable. I'll lose everything, she whispered. Yes, you will. Just like you planned for me. He pressed the intercom. Sarah, please escort Mrs. Hayes out. And if she returns, call security. Danny turned back to his work as Ellie was led away. His phone buzzed again. Another update from Mac's team. Sterling was singing to the FBI, desperately trying to save himself. The information he provided would bring down several other criminal enterprises. Perfect. The wider the destruction spread, the better. The next few days brought a cascade of developments. Sterling's wife filed for divorce. His children's private school asked them to leave. His country club membership was revoked. The man who had once ruled Des Moines' social scene became a pariah overnight. Ellie's fall was equally spectacular. The social work board suspended her license pending investigation. Her friends, already distant, abandoned her completely after learning the full scope of her deceptions. She made one final attempt to appeal to Danny's mercy, cornering him in the parking garage. "I have nothing left," she sobbed. "No job, no money, no future. Even my family won't speak to me." Danny regarded her coldly. "You should have thought about consequences before you decided to betray me. What happened to forgiveness? To compassion? Those died with the man you betrayed. This version of me doesn't forgive. This version gets even." He left her there, her pleas echoing off the concrete walls. In his office, more reports awaited. Sterling was facing 20 years in federal prison. The plea deals he desperately offered were rejected, Danny's influence ensuring maximum charges were pursued. The local media feasted on the scandal. Headlines blared daily about Sterling's crimes, about Ellie's professional misconduct, about the spectacular fall of two people who had thought themselves untouchable. Danny orchestrated it all from his new office, each move calculated for maximum impact. The quiet history teacher had become a force of nature, a meticulous architect of destruction. "Sir?" Sarah interrupted his thoughts. The real estate agent called. "The Sterling mansion goes up for auction next week." "Good. Make sure our bid is ready. I want their house too. And Mrs. Hayes's license hearing is tomorrow." Danny nodded. "Make sure the board has all the evidence. I want her to watch her career die in real time." The web of revenge tightened, leaving no escape for its victims. Danny had learned to take pleasure in their suffering, to savor each new blow as it landed. The hunter had become the destroyer, and his prey would never recover from his wrath. Chapter 7. The Fall of the Wicked. The federal courthouse buzzed with anticipation as Gavin Sterling was led into the courtroom, his designer suit replaced by prison orange. Danny sat in the back row, watching his former rival shuffle to the defense table in shackles. "All rise," the bailiff called. The United States District Court for the Southern District of Iowa is now in session, the Honorable Judge Matthews presiding. Danny remained seated until the last moment, wanting Sterling to feel his presence. The once mighty car dealer's shoulders tensed as he passed Danny's row. "Good. Let him squirm." "Mr. Sterling," Judge Matthews addressed the defendant. "I understand you wish to change your plea?" Sterling's new public defender, no fancy lawyer would touch his toxic case now, stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client wishes to plead guilty to counts 1 through 17 of the indictment." "Very well. Mr. Sterling, please rise." Danny leaned forward, savoring each moment as Sterling admitted to his crimes. Money laundering, wire fraud, tax evasion. The list went on. Each admission another nail in his coffin. "The defendant has provided substantial assistance to ongoing investigations," the prosecutor stated. "However, given the scope and duration of his criminal enterprise, the government recommends the maximum sentence." Judge Matthews nodded gravely. "Mr. Sterling, your crimes represent a profound breach of trust. You've destroyed lives, corrupted institutions, and shown no remorse until faced with consequences. I sentence you to 20 years in federal prison." The gavel's crack echoed through the courtroom. Sterling's legs buckled. His public defender caught his arm, steadying him. Danny slipped out before Sterling could be led away. In the courthouse lobby, he found Mac waiting. 20 years, Mac whistled low. "That's harsh." "It's perfect." Danny straightened his tie. "How's his family taking it?" "Wife filed for divorce this morning. Taking the kids to her parents in California. Sterling's reputation is so toxic, she's changing their last name." "Excellent. And the dealership?" "Receivers took control yesterday. They found even more evidence of fraud. The feds are looking at RICO charges now." Danny nodded. "Make sure Mrs. Sterling's divorce attorney gets copies of everything. I want her to take him for whatever's left." His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah at the office. License hearing started. "Board looks angry." Danny smiled. "One down. One ago, the state licensing board had convened a special hearing to address Ellie's misconduct. Danny had ensured they received comprehensive documentation of her financial manipulations, her abuse of client trust, her pattern of deception. He arrived at the regulatory board's offices in time to see Ellie emerge, tears streaming down her face. Her professional license, revoked. Her career, over. She spotted him across the lobby. "Happy now," she screamed. "You've taken everything." Security moved to intercept her. Danny held up a hand, stopping them. "No, Ellie. You gave everything away. For what? A con man who's now going to spend 20 years in prison? I'm sorry. How many times do I have to say it? I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You systematically destroyed our marriage while stealing our money and slandering my name." Danny's voice remained cold. "Actions have consequences. What am I supposed to do now? I have nothing left." "You have exactly what you plan to leave me with." "Nothing." He turned to the security guards. "Please escort Mrs. Hayes out. She's causing a scene." Danny watched them lead her away, her sobs echoing through the lobby. No remorse softened his heart. She'd chosen her path. Now she could walk it alone. Back at Price & Associates, Sarah had more updates. The forensic accountants had traced all of Ellie's financial misconduct. The evidence was damning. "The divorce filing is ready," Sarah reported. "With the documentation of her theft and fraud, we're seeking full restitution plus punitive damages." "Perfect. File it immediately. And make sure the press gets copies." Danny settled behind his desk. Time to turn private betrayal into public humiliation. The next week brought a media frenzy. Local newspapers ran exposés on Sterling's criminal empire and Ellie's role in it. Their photos appeared side by side. The corrupt businessman and his gold-digging mistress, both brought low by justice. Danny watched his enemies' lives crumble with cold satisfaction. Sterling headed to federal prison, abandoned by family and friends. Ellie reduced to begging relatives for shelter, her reputation destroyed. The hunter had caught his prey. Now he would watch them suffer. Chapter 8. The Ruthless Payback. Danny sat in his office at Price & Associates, reviewing Mac's latest report on Sterling's prison adjustment. The former car dealer wasn't adapting well to life behind bars. His first week was rough, Mac explained over the phone. Some inmates recognized him from the news. They don't like white-collar criminals who laundered money for drug dealers. "Any serious injuries?" "Nothing permanent. Yet. But he's requesting protective custody." Danny smiled. "Make sure the prison gets anonymous tips about his cooperation with the feds. Let's see how other inmates react to that." "That's cold, Danny. So was trying to destroy my life." He paused. "How's the other matter progressing? The media campaign?" "It's working. 3 newspapers are running stories about Ellie's professional misconduct. Social media is brutal. She can't show her face in public without being recognized." "Good. Keep it going. I want her name to become synonymous with betrayal." Danny hung up and opened his laptop. The latest headlines pleased him. Disgraced social worker faces professional ruin. Sterling's mistress. A story of greed and betrayal. Hayes divorce. A cautionary tale. Sarah knocked on his door. "Sir?" The real estate agent called. "Your bid on the house was accepted." The house, their house. Where he'd lived with Ellie for 15 years. Where she'd betrayed him. Now it would become a weapon in his arsenal. "Schedule the closing for next week. And contact the Women's Shelter Organization. I want to move quickly on the renovation plans." Converting their former home into a shelter for abused women. It was poetic justice. Each woman helped would be a testament to Ellie's betrayal, a permanent monument to her shame. He picked up his phone again, dialing Mac. "I need a favor. Find out where Ellie's staying. Her family must have taken her in." The information came back within hours. She'd moved in with her sister in a small apartment across town. Danny drove past that evening, noting the shabby building, the worn paint. How far the mighty had fallen. His phone buzzed. Another text from Ellie. "Please, we need to talk. I'm desperate." He typed back. "Desperation suits you. Consider it practice for your new life." The next day brought more developments. The State Bar Association launched an investigation into Randy Price's judicial bribery scheme. 3 judges announced early retirement. Others faced criminal charges. Danny watched the dominoes fall from his office window. Each collapse carefully orchestrated, each ruin precisely planned. The quiet teacher had become an architect of destruction. Sarah appeared with more files. The divorce proceedings are public record now. Media's having a field day. Send copies to Ellie's relatives. I want them to know exactly what kind of person they're harboring. The systematic dismantling of Ellie's life continued. Job applications rejected. Rental applications denied. Her name poisoned in professional circles. Danny's influence reached far, touching every aspect of her existence. He drove past their old house again, now transformed by construction crews into its new purpose. The sign out front proclaimed, "Future home of the Hayes Center for Women in Crisis." Ellie would see that sign each time she passed. She would know that her betrayal had become a force for good, that her shame would help others heal. It was a punishment more elegant than mere revenge. Mac's weekly prison report brought more satisfaction. Sterling had been moved to protective custody after multiple threats. His days were spent in isolation, his nights filled with the echoes of other inmates' taunts. He's trying to appeal his sentence, Mac reported. Claims ineffective counsel. Make sure the appeals court gets the full record of his crimes, Danny replied, including the evidence he thought was suppressed. The wheels of justice ground on, crushing everything in their path. Danny had learned patience, had mastered the art of strategic destruction. Each move calculated, each blow precision-targeted. He kept photos of Sterling and Ellie on his desk, reminders of why he transformed himself from victim to victor. Their smug faces from happier days now served as trophies of his conquest. Sarah brought afternoon updates. Sir? Mrs. Hayes tried to apply for a job at a shelter in Cedar Rapids. Call our contacts there. Make sure they know her history. That seems necessary, Danny finished. She destroyed lives as a social worker. She'll never work in that field again. The punishment continued, relentless and thorough. Danny had discovered a talent for revenge, an aptitude for systematic destruction. He wielded power like a surgeon's scalpel, cutting away at his enemies' lives until nothing remained. Their old house neared completion, its transformation nearly complete. Soon it would welcome its first residents, women escaping situations like the one Ellie had created. Their healing would be built on the foundation of her betrayal. Danny stood in the former living room, now a counseling space. Here, Ellie had played their marriage's funeral dirge on his beloved record player. Now, other women would find strength where she had shown weakness. Your contribution to the shelter will help countless women, the program director gushed. You're a true humanitarian, Mr. Hayes. If she only knew the truth, that kindness could serve revenge, that charity could carry the seeds of retribution. Danny had learned to weaponize everything, even generosity. The fall continued, measured in small defeats and quiet humiliations. Each day brought new evidence of his enemy's destruction, new proof of his power. Danny had become something more than a mere victim seeking justice. He was now a force of nature, as implacable as gravity, as relentless as time itself. Chapter 9. The New Beginning. The Des Moines Register's business section featured a glowing profile of Danny Hayes, the unlikely success story who had transformed a troubled law firm into a powerhouse of corporate compliance and ethics. Hayes's commitment to justice extends beyond the courtroom, the article proclaimed. His charitable works, including the Hayes Center for Women in Crisis, have made him a pillar of the community. Danny set the paper aside, gazing out from his penthouse office. Below, the city sprawled like a chessboard, his chessboard now. He'd learned to play the game at levels his enemies never imagined. Sarah entered with the morning briefings. The Sterling dealership sale is complete. Proceeds distributed to the Victims' Compensation Fund as directed. And our other investments? The law firm's profits are up 40%. The Ethics Compliance Division is bringing in new clients daily. She paused. There's also a message from Mrs. Hayes' sister. She's asking for mercy. Danny's laugh held no warmth. Mercy died the night I found those messages. What else? The Hayes Center opens next week. Press coverage is confirmed. Local TV wants an interview. Arrange it. The public loves a redemption story. He turned from the window. even if they don't know the full plot. The transformation was complete. Danny Hayes, betrayed husband and quiet teacher, had become Danny Hayes, business mogul and philanthropist. His revenge had birthed an empire built on others' ruins. Mac's weekly report arrived, the last one he'd need. Sterling had given up his final appeal. He would serve his full sentence, broken and alone. He asked about Ellie, Mac noted. I told him she's working as a waitress in a truck stop outside Omaha. He cried. Perfect. Danny closed the file. That concludes our business with Mr. Sterling. Ellie's latest attempt at rebuilding had failed, as Danny ensured all her attempts would. Each job application mysteriously rejected, each fresh start poisoned by anonymous revelations about her past. She tried moving to other cities, using different names. Danny's network found her each time, made sure her history followed her like a shadow. The Hayes Center thrived, helping dozens of women escape abusive situations. Danny attended fundraisers, made speeches about empowerment and justice. No one suspected his philanthropy's dark roots. You've changed this firm for the better, Thomas Wilson, the senior partner who'd once opposed him, admitted. We're not just more profitable, we're more ethical. Danny nodded, accepting the praise. He'd learned to wear many masks: reformer, philanthropist, community leader. Each mask hiding the cold truth beneath. Sarah brought afternoon mail. Another letter from Ellie. Should I shred it?
No.
Danny held out his hand. I like having reminders. The letter joined others in his desk drawer. Desperate pleas for forgiveness, for mercy, for a chance to explain. He kept them as trophies, proof of his victory. The penthouse offered views across Des Moines. Danny stood at the glass, watching his city. Below, life went on, people working, loving, betraying. But up here, he'd found a different perspective. The quiet teacher who loved vintage records was gone. In his place stood a man who'd mastered the art of sophisticated revenge, who'd learned that true power lies not in forgiveness, but in the calculated application of consequences. His phone buzzed, another charity wanting his support. He'd become a sought-after donor, his reputation now golden where once it had been tarnished by Ellie's lies. The transformation was complete, the victory total. His enemies lay broken, their lives ruined with a precision that bordered on art. Danny smiled, a genuine expression now, not the mask he'd worn in his old life. He was free, not just from betrayal's pain, but from the weakness that had made him vulnerable. The sun set over Des Moines, painting the sky in flames. Danny watched it from his penthouse, a glass of wine in hand. Below, his city pulsed with life and possibility. He'd learned valuable lessons. That kindness can mask betrayal, that trust is a weapon waiting to be turned against you, that true strength lies in the ability to destroy your enemies so completely they never rise again. The Hayes Center would open tomorrow, its mission statement carved in stone, helping women reclaim their power. Only Danny knew its deeper purpose, a monument to his revenge, proof that even charity could serve retribution. He lifted his glass to the dying sun, toasting his new life. The past was ash, but from it, he'd forged something stronger, something ruthless, something true. Danny Hayes had died in betrayal's fire. What emerged was something far more dangerous. A man who'd learned that mercy is weakness and revenge, properly executed, is the highest form of art. Epilogue: a decade of consequences. 10 years had passed since Danny Hayes transformed from a mild-mannered history teacher into one of Des Moines' most influential figures. Price and Associates, now Hayes Legal Group, occupied the top floors of a downtown high-rise, its chrome and glass facade reflecting Danny's evolution from victim to victor. Danny sat in his office, reviewing the quarterly reports. The firm had expanded to 3 additional cities, each branch specializing in corporate compliance and ethics, an irony not lost on him. His phone buzzed with a text from Mac, who remained his most trusted ally. Guess who's up for parole? Danny didn't need to ask who. Gavin Sterling had served 10 years of his 20-year sentence. The former car dealer's first parole hearing was scheduled for next month. Send me the details, Danny replied. And make sure the parole board receives our concerned citizen package. The package contained comprehensive documentation of Sterling's crimes, victim impact statements, and anonymous reports of his prison behavior. Danny had spent a decade ensuring Sterling's incarceration remained as uncomfortable as possible. Sarah, now the firm's chief operations officer, entered with coffee and updates. She'd stayed with Danny, recognizing his ruthless efficiency as a path to her own success. The Hayes Center's 10th anniversary gala is next week, she reminded him. Local media wants interviews about its impact on the community. The Hayes Center for Women in Crisis had helped thousands of women escape abusive situations. Danny's initial act of revenge had evolved into a nationally recognized model for domestic violence intervention. The beautiful irony of it still made him smile. Schedule the interviews, he instructed, and have our PR team prepare the usual talking points about second chances and redemption. Sarah nodded, then hesitated. There's one more thing. Ellie was spotted in town. Danny's hand stilled on his coffee cup. Eleanor Hayes had spent the past decade drifting between cities, unable to rebuild her life. His network of contacts ensured her past followed her everywhere, poisoning each attempt at a fresh start. Details: working as a home health aide under her maiden name, living in a small apartment on the south side. She's not doing well. Make sure her current employer receives an anonymous tip about her history of financial fraud, Danny replied coldly. We can't risk her having access to vulnerable patients. Sarah made a note. What about her request to visit her mother's grave? Local cemetery. Denied. Her mother's estate made it clear. She's not welcome at family properties. Danny had spent years cultivating relationships with Ellie's relatives, positioning himself as the wronged victim who'd turned his pain into community service. They'd chosen him over her, adding another layer to her isolation. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Hayes? Marcus Caldwell is here. Mac entered, looking barely older than the day they'd plotted Sterling's downfall. His private investigation firm, funded partially by Danny, had become the go-to agency for corporate intelligence. Sterling's getting desperate, Mac reported, settling into a chair. He's tried reaching out to his kids again. They still won't respond. Danny nodded with satisfaction. Sterling's family had changed their name and moved to California, cutting all ties. His ex-wife had remarried a tech executive. His children called another man Dad. His prison counselor thinks he's reformed, Mac continued. Claims he's a changed man. They all change when consequences catch up, Danny replied. Doesn't mean they deserve freedom. He pulled up his calendar, noting the date of Sterling's parole hearing. A decade of planning had prepared him for this moment. Release the new evidence to the board, he instructed. The recordings of him bragging about his crimes to other inmates. The threats he made against witnesses. Everything. Mac raised an eyebrow. That'll guarantee denial. Exactly. I want him to taste hope before we snatch it away. The intercom buzzed again. Sir? The director of the Hayes Center is here for your meeting. Amanda Chen had run the center for 5 years, transforming it from a local shelter into a comprehensive support network for abuse survivors. She had no idea the organization's founding stemmed from revenge rather than philanthropy. Danny. She greeted him warmly. Wait until you see the numbers from last quarter. We've helped more women than ever. They reviewed the center's success stories, women who'd escaped abuse, rebuilt their lives, found strength in survival. Each one a stark contrast to Ellie's descent into isolated desperation. The 10-year anniversary gala will be huge, Amanda enthused. We're honoring you with our Humanitarian of the Year award. Danny accepted graciously, playing his role as the compassionate community leader. The mask fit comfortably now, worn smooth by years of practice. After Amanda left, Danny pulled up the surveillance feed from the Hayes Center. The building that had once been his marital home now stood as a monument to his revenge. Ellie had to pass it regularly, seeing her shame transformed into others' salvation. His phone buzzed with another update from his network. A job application Ellie had submitted to a care facility in Cedar Rapids, rejected. An apartment application in Iowa City, denied. Each small defeat carefully orchestrated, each hope systematically crushed. The sun set over Des Moines as Danny reviewed reports from his other ventures. The former Sterling luxury motors dealership was now a thriving community center. The corrupt judges he'd exposed had been replaced by reforms he'd helped design. His influence touched everything. Sarah returned with evening briefings. The parole board received the sterling evidence. Initial feedback suggests unanimous denial. Good. Make sure his prison counselor gets copies too. Let's see how reformed Sterling feels when his last hope dies. Danny's empire had grown beyond mere revenge. He'd transformed retribution into an art form, wielding power with precise calculation. The quiet teacher who loved vintage records was long dead, replaced by a man who'd mastered the manipulation of lives and consequences. A notification popped up on his phone. Another desperate email from Ellie, routed through his screening system. Like all the others, it begged for mercy, for a chance to apologize, for some small relief from the endless punishment. Danny archived it without reading, adding it to his collection of trophies. A decade of suffering hadn't softened his resolve. If anything, time had hardened his determination to ensure his enemies never found peace. He pulled up the speech he'd deliver at the Hayes Center Gala, fine-tuning phrases about healing and second chances. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd built a reputation for helping others while systematically destroying those who'd wronged him. Mac's evening report arrived with more satisfying details. Sterling's prison account was empty again, his commissary privileges restricted. Small torments, but they added up. The former businessman who'd once driven luxury cars now begged for basic necessities. The anniversary gala preparations are finalized, Sarah reported. Local media is calling it the charitable event of the year. Danny nodded, pleased. The gala would cement his public image. Successful businessman, philanthropist, pillar of the community. None would guess the darkness beneath the polished facade. An alert on his desktop marked another failed job application from Ellie. She tried applying at a small diner near the state line. Danny's network had ensured the owner received an anonymous tip about her history. The systematic destruction continued, year after year, without pause or mercy. Danny had learned that revenge wasn't a single act but a sustained campaign, a lifetime commitment to ensuring consequences never ended. His phone buzzed with a message from Thomas Wilson, the senior partner who'd opposed him years ago. Now retired in Florida, Wilson had become an unlikely mentor, helping Danny navigate the transition from teacher to corporate titan. Saw the Hayes Center's numbers, Wilson wrote. You've built something remarkable. If he only knew the truth, that charity could serve vengeance, that helping others could mask the calculated destruction of one's enemies. Danny had mastered the art of using good works to conceal ruthless intentions. The evening deepened as Danny reviewed his empire. The law firm dominated corporate law across 3 states. The Hayes Center's model was being replicated nationally. His influence stretched far beyond Des Moines, touching lives in ways both positive and devastating. A final report from Mac contained surveillance photos. Sterling in his prison cell, gray and broken. Ellie leaving another failed job interview, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The images joined Danny's collection, proof that consequences, properly managed, never ended. Sarah brought the last updates before leaving. The parole board meeting is scheduled. They're expediting the denial based on the new evidence. Perfect. Make sure Sterling knows exactly why his hopes were crushed. I want him to understand that freedom will never be an option. The office emptied as night fell. Danny stood at his window, watching his city. A decade of calculated revenge had transformed him from victim to victor, from prey to predator. He'd learned that power wasn't in the ability to destroy enemies quickly, but in the patience to ensure their suffering never ended. His phone buzzed one final time. Another pleading message from Ellie, sent through a borrowed phone. Like all the others, it would go unanswered. Danny had learned that silence could hurt more than words, that ignored pleas caused more pain than angry responses. The decade had taught him valuable lessons. That revenge was a dish best served not cold, but continuously. That true power lay not in forgiveness, but in the sustained application of consequences. That mercy was a weakness he could no longer afford. Danny Hayes, the kind teacher who'd loved vintage records and quiet evenings, was long dead. In his place stood a man who'd mastered the art of sophisticated destruction, who'd learned that revenge wasn't an act but a lifestyle, a commitment to ensuring enemies never found peace. He raised his glass to the city lights, toasting the empire he'd built on the ruins of betrayal. The past decade had proved his theory that the best revenge wasn't swift or dramatic, but patient and relentless. A constant pressure that ground enemies to dust, year after year, without pause or mercy. The quiet teacher had become a force of nature, as implacable as time itself. And time, Danny had learned, was the cruelest weapon of all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.